everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie and this is all about my life after gastric bypass surgery, and today's video is my 13-month post-op update. Had this weird thought that once I hit 12 months, I just wouldn't really have much to talk about anymore, and maybe some updates would be kind of boring. But I've realized in the last month that there are still a lot of changes happening and there's still a lot going on. And so I actually do have stuff to talk about, and I actually do have changes that are still going on. I think there is kind of this conception around online that maybe, you know, after about a year, that's it. After surgery, you've completed what you need to do. But for a lot of us, this still keeps going, and not just with the active weight loss and the active, working towards a goal, but this is, again, a life change. It's a lifestyle change. It's something that I'm going to have to keep up and continue to work at for the rest of my life. And so there will always be things that are changing and things that I need to adapt to, to keep things fresh and to keep things moving forward in a direction that's positive. I am going to have to make sure that I'm updating and just staying on top of things. But before we get too much into that, just a really quick housekeeping announcement. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for returning. Thank you so much for supporting my videos. I cannot tell you how important that is and how important that is to me as a person, that you guys are returning and leaving such great comments and liking my videos. It really means a lot. Thank you so much for your support. I never would have thought that this many people would be interested in how I'm experiencing this and the kind of information I'm putting out. So thank you so much for that support. If you're not yet a subscriber, I just ask that at the end of this video, if this is good content, if this is stuff that you're interested in and you do like this video, to please consider subscribing and supporting my channel and supporting the information and the research that I am putting together. Oh, and make sure that you ring the notification bell so you know every time a video of mine goes live. So what are the big changes that have happened in month 13, which seems like kind of an arbitrary number, but I mean, I am now officially past that 1 year mark. What is different? What are things that are changing, and how is it affecting me? More than I really gave it credit for until I started sitting down and thinking what's going on. And one of the things that really stood out to me is that eating is getting a lot easier. And I mean that in both good and bad ways. So eating in general doesn't bother me as much as it used to. And if you've been around here for a while, you know that I really haven't had very many issues with food, very many complications with anything, very few dumping episodes, very few complications with certain foods not sitting right with me. I've been very blessed in that respect, that eating in general has been fairly easy for me after surgery, but I still would run into issues with feeling maybe like in the morning eating food didn't really sit well on my stomach, and so I was easing into just drinking a protein shake in the morning and maybe something easily digestible at lunchtime, and I would just sort of ease my way into that. I'm finding less and less issues with that. I can eat in the morning way easier now than I could a few months ago. I still overall feel better if I ease myself into things. So having like a protein coffee in the morning, maybe a yogurt as a snack, some meat and cheeses at lunchtime. Those things still make me feel better. So I try to stick to those, but I am noticing that eating just doesn't bother me as much anymore. And that's great. But with that also comes the fact that eating doesn't bother me as much anymore. And I'm really starting to feel what people say about not taking that first year and a half for granted, because things change. They change fast, you guys. I'm just over a year and I'm already noticing that it is much easier for me to eat sweets than it was before. I can handle a lot more at a time, and I'm also noticing that it is not only easier, but it is something that I need to keep an eye on, or I am snacking more throughout the day. Because I have now gotten to the point where things don't bother me as much, it is much easier for me to snack and nibble on things that maybe aren't the best choices, or like sugar, for example. It's much easier for me to have a little bit of sugar here and there throughout the day, and then all of a sudden by the end of the day, that's added up quite a bit. But little bits at a time weren't bothering me. So those are the kind of things that I really need to keep an eye on, because some of those old habits are trying to sneak back, and being mindful about what I'm doing is so important. It's so important, because that mindless eating, that's really easy to come back. I mean, the easier it is to eat, the easier it is for me to continue to eat. Now, I still have a lot of restriction. I still get full after about 6 to 8 ounces of food. So thankfully that hasn't really gone away, but I do know that I can pack away a little bit more if I'm not weighing my food out than I could before. And that is normal. That's something that's normally going to happen. There's this misconception that if you can eat more after surgery, after like a year or so, that you've stretched your stomach out. That's not true. Your stomach will just naturally relax and ease up, and you'll start to be able to eat more. So it's up to me to be mindful of that and making sure that I'm not overstuffing myself when I don't need to. And talking about those old habits creeping in, I mean, I noticed a few days ago that I did one of the things that I really, really need to never go back to. And what I used to do in the past is I would eat until the brink. I would eat, I mean, if I was in a binging episode, I would eat until I was uncomfortable, until I was sick. But the moment that I didn't feel that discomfort and I didn't feel that fullness anymore, not that I was hungry, but I just didn't feel uncomfortable, I would eat a few more things, and I'd pack on a little bit more. And I noticed that I kind of did that the other day. I had gotten done with a relatively large meal compared to, what my meals are now. And I wasn't hungry, but I just sort of started looking at things and started eating a few snacky things because I had room. And that is something that I don't ever want to go back to again. Once I noticed that I was doing that, I stopped it immediately, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on that kind of thing, because that's a really good example of how I'm always saying surgery doesn't fix that stuff. If surgery doesn't fix my brain and those old binge eating habits, I have to continually work on that. And I think that's something that I'm going to have to keep at bay for the rest of my life. I'm going to have to be mindful of that and not let that creep back in. I blew right past the stats, so let's go into those really quick. If you're interested in the stats, I'm going to throw them up right here. My highest recorded weight was 383.3 pounds, and I started this whole process right before my surgery, right at the pre-op diet at 374 pounds, and I weighed in at the end of January. At the end of December. I weighed in at the end of January at 210.6 pounds, and I weighed in February 1st at 208.4. So I lost 2.2 pounds for the month of January, and as anticipated, that's not a lot. That has not only slowed down significantly as I approached that 1 year mark, but there has been a pretty big difference, as I anticipated, with adding working out and strength training into things. Am I building muscle? I don't really know. I'm not really sure, but I know my body, and I know that I have a much more difficult time losing weight as I start to add more activity. So I'm just keeping an eye on things. I knew going into this year, that second year after surgery, that I'm going to place much less emphasis on the scale and a lot more emphasis on measurements. So that's something that I did do. I did take measurements, and in this last month, I have lost a couple inches, which is really good to see and really interesting to see. So I will throw up my screenshot here of the Bariatric app that I use. That's where I input my measurements, and it looks like I lost 2 inches on my waist. I lost 2 inches on my left thigh and 1 inch on my right thigh. Don't ask me why, but we can't pick and choose where we lose it. And there really wasn't any change anywhere else going on. So that's really cool, though. That's really good to see that I am losing. 2 inches on my waist is quite a bit. That's quite a bit to lose. So despite the fact that I'm really not seeing big numbers anymore in the scale, I am seeing change. And with the measurement change, also comes just the fact that I am seeing the change. This month was a really, really big eye opener for me in terms of how much my body has changed. I don't know if it's just in the last month I'm noticing it a lot, or if it has to do with the fact that maybe I just wasn't really paying a lot of attention before and I'm seeing it now. But this month I really can see the changes in my body. I can see, I guess the best way to put it is that I feel floppy. You guys, I feel really floppy. I am noticing that I have a different shape now. And although I've had loose skin for quite a while, I'm just noticing how that falls and how that's sitting on my body now, how that's making me kind of feel and how that's making me shaped. And I really noticed it when I went shopping the other day for new clothes. I just felt like it was way more noticeable to see that loose skin and those areas of my body that are changing that didn't really seem to bother me several months ago when I was shopping before. I'm still overall really happy and really confident with my weight loss, but it is starting to get noticeable that I'm feeling a little less into things. I'm feeling a little floppier, a little wrinklier, and a little more self-conscious about, maybe going out in certain clothes or things. Just the way things sit on me, I guess is the best way to put it. My body is definitely changing, and that was a really good reminder though, as I'm not really changing a lot on the scale and I'm kind of going up and down on the same pound a lot of times. Seeing the changes in my body, although I am kind of perceiving them as negative and I'm not really liking what I'm seeing those changes is still a really good way of remembering that I still have ways to go and I'm going to be changing. That is part of this process. It's still happening, and to just let the process do what it's going to do. Let it happen. I think I'm in this in-between stage right now where, again, I'm not really liking what I'm seeing, but eventually I'll kind of move my way into an area where I feel a little bit more confident again. That seems to wax and wane as I go through this process. So I'm just trying to be, as forgiving and loving to myself as possible and just moving through the process as best as I can. And then one thing that I didn't update in December when I was hitting that 1-year mark was that I do have some changes in my vitamins now. And I just wanted to give a quick update on that. Most of my vitamins are the same. I haven't changed too much, but my doctor was noticing that my copper levels were continuing to slightly increase every time I got my blood work. And as we were looking at things, we were seeing that there's like 200% copper in the bariatric multivitamin. So she recommended maybe I find another vitamin that doesn't have such a high amount. And I can't find any bariatric multivitamins that don't have 200% copper in them. So for some reason, my body is just absorbing copper really well. So we made the decision a few months ago that I would switch to just a regular multivitamin, but that I would take 2 of them a day. And that way I could get up to the levels of the bariatric vitamins, but find something without copper in it. So what I chose based on looking at all my options and looking at the levels and everything were prenatals that I just got from Costco. They had the right levels for what I'm looking for, and I was taking 2 of those every day for a few months. And I got my blood work in December and my copper levels are going down, which is great. All of my other levels are staying perfectly fine. So that is working really well for me. So that's what I'm doing now. It's also a little cheaper to be buying the prenatals at Costco. So that's cool as well. And as always, I'm going to end my video with a few non-scale victories that I have noticed over the last month or so. The first one being that staying hydrated is a lot easier now. I am able to just drink so much more without thinking. I've been able to go back to the drinking that I did before surgery. It does not bother my stomach at all anymore. So that's been really fantastic. And being able to focus on hydration has really helped and made me feel a lot better. So I'm really happy about that. I have been able to do a lot of work on my house. I'm working on a spare bedroom upstairs, getting that ready to be kind of fixed up and painted. And I'm on my knees and crawling around and doing a lot of work and sanding things. And I'm noticing that it's so easy to do that now, where before that would have been so difficult and I would have been really out of breath and exhausted doing work like that. So it's really nice to be able to feel like I can make progress on things that I want to do. And it's been amazing to make that progress and to feel like that motivation and that energy to do so. I've also been prioritizing my self-care, which is something that I really wanted to focus on this year as part of my New Year's goals. And so I've been taking a lot more baths and just kind of giving myself a nice, comfortable space with a candle and just giving myself some time to relax every now and then. And that's been amazing. On top of all of that, the non-scale victory that comes with that is that baths are so much more enjoyable now that I'm smaller. I remember I took a bath before my surgery at one point. I just felt like a whale stuck in a bathtub. It felt so uncomfortable and so not relaxing. And now I feel like I can just relax a little bit in the bath. It has been very nice to feel comfortable in my skin and just comfortable in my body and feeling like I can enjoy a bath without it being a really just uncomfortable, tight experience. And then the last thing is that I bought a shirt the other day in a size large. In fact, I bought 2 things in a size large. But there is a downfall to that. There's a downside, and it's because I've lost my boobs. Rest in peace, boobs. I can wear a large in some shirts now, depending on the style, and I bought a large sports bra, but the reason for that is because my boobs are changing, and they definitely look different than they used to, which is, a plus or minus. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it doesn't bother me to lose them, but I was fully aware that maybe someday they would finally go. And it took a year. I really didn't lose a lot of weight and a lot of shape to my boobs for almost a year. And now I'm really starting to see that change. So it's bittersweet, but hey, a size large, I'll take it. That's okay for me. So I bought a large shirt, some other things in an XL, and then I'm pretty solidly like a size 16 in my pants, which is great. Actually, this is a size 16 and it's kind of large. So the size 16 jeggings that I purchased, because yes, apparently that's a thing I'm doing now. I'm the kind of person who buys jeggings. That was a size 16 and they fit pretty snug. But some of my other 16 like jeans and stuff are getting a little loose. So I think I'm in between, a size 14 and 16 depending on. So that is really cool just to have those numbers, because those are numbers I haven't seen in forever. So I consider that a non-scale victory. It's seeing that change, not just focused on the number, but seeing how things are fitting me and seeing how my body is changing is more of a reminder that this is still an ongoing process. It's still working. So I'm still here, you guys, still working at it. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that was a helpful and interesting update. I will be doing these monthly updates continuing on as long as there's still changes and there's still stuff going on. I'll still keep updating you on how things are going after surgery. I hope you have a great day. Make sure you're always paying attention to those small changes along the way. Keep your non-scale victories in mind, and I will see you guys in the next one.